How marriage exploits men, the hidden truth, psychology tips. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. Henry David Thoreau. What if everything you were told about marriage was never the truth, but a carefully crafted story designed to keep you in line? Think about it. Loyalty, sacrifice, responsibility, these are the very traits that make you a good man. Yet in marriage, they become the chains that quietly strip away your freedom. Look at the men around you. How many still walk with purpose, fire in their eyes, and sovereignty in their lives? Most don't. Because modern marriage is no longer a partnership, it's a system, an ancient machine disguised as love, created to drain a man's independence, his identity, and eventually his will to fight back. And the worst part? It happens so slowly, so subtly, that most men never even realize they've been trapped. 1. After marriage, the transformation of a man. After marriage, the transformation of a man is often subtle at first, but soon becomes undeniable. And if you look closely, you'll see the pattern repeated in countless lives. Don't ignore it. Don't sugarcoat it. Be honest with yourself. What really happens to most men once they step into marriage? Their closest friends, the ones who once brought laughter and brotherhood, slowly vanish. Not because of natural distance, but because the new structure of married life leaves no room for them. The hobbies, passions, and small escapes that once gave a man identity and vitality get labeled as selfish indulgences unless they directly serve the family unit. And in time, many men stop even fighting for them. That is the quiet erosion of self. His free time, once his own, to use for growth or relaxation, is now consumed by a never-ending list of household duties, child-rearing responsibilities, and management of the family's daily chaos. And the most critical shift, money. A man's paycheck, earned through sweat and late nights, instantly morphs into our money. Yet in practice, it is often his wife who dictates how it will be spent. Don't think this is coincidence. Don't be fooled into believing it's simply the natural byproduct of love. It is a deliberately designed system, social, cultural, and even legal, that strips men of their options and locks them into dedicating every ounce of energy and every dollar earned to maintaining the family structure, often at the cost of their own sovereignty. You must see that this isn't random chance. Marriage, as it functions today, exploits the very values that define a good man: loyalty, sacrifice, responsibility, and turns them into chains. It rebrands his duty as obligation, his generosity as expectation, and his financial success as a communal resource he no longer fully controls. This is where psychology tips, love advice, and dating tips become critical for men to understand, because knowledge of human behavior is the only shield against manipulation. Don't just drift into the system blindly. Be the man who observes with clarity, who asks hard questions. Is this structure serving me, or am I merely serving it? The truth is simple but profound. Marriage, in its modern form, too often becomes a machine designed not to empower men, but to drain them. Don't let your fire die quietly. Don't let your freedom shrink into the background. Be the man who learns, who applies psychology tips, who seeks love advice not to be used, but to remain strong and aware in every relationship. That is your defense. That is your responsibility. Because the transformation of a man after marriage does not have to mean surrender. It can mean awareness, mastery, and the courage to set terms on how you give your time, your love, and your wealth. And you must never forget, a system only exploits you if you walk into it blind. Be awake. Be sharp. Be unafraid to protect your sovereignty. 2. The genius of the system. The true brilliance and the quiet tragedy of this system is that it turns a man's best values into the very tools that hold him captive. Think about it. The drive to be a good husband, the desire to be a reliable father, the instinct to be a steadfast provider, virtues praised by society, become the very chains that keep him locked in place. It's a cruel magic trick. His loyalty, his sense of duty, his sacrifice, all the things that should make him noble, are twisted into instruments of control. And the genius is this: he cooperates in his own imprisonment. He tells himself that resistance would be selfish, that wanting freedom makes him irresponsible, that refusing the weight makes him less of a man. He builds the bars and then thanks society for handing him the hammer. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But for the married man, the deeper terror is staring into the mirror and realizing how fully he has been domesticated. His wildness, his fire, his sense of adventure gradually tamed, fenced, and trimmed until he forgets he ever had them. Even our language gives away the truth. We don't say celebrating freedom, we say the ball and chain. We don't say starting a journey, we say getting hitched. We don't say building a kingdom, we say taking the plunge. Words carry the weight of centuries, and they whisper what men don't want to admit: that marriage in its current form doesn't represent partnership, it represents surrender. And yet, most men don't see it coming because love psychology plays tricks on the mind. A man convinced he is fulfilling his highest calling, protecting, providing, sacrificing, cannot see the walls closing in around him. He believes his relationship goals are noble, that by giving everything, he will gain everything. But slowly, silently, he loses the most precious resource of all: his freedom to choose who he becomes. That is the genius of the system. Don't underestimate it. Don't pretend it isn't there. Be wise enough to question it. You must see the hidden architecture before it traps you. The tragedy is that the very qualities that once helped men conquer empires are the same ones used to make them tame within their own homes. The man who wanted to attract women with strength and confidence ends up weakened by obligation. The man who sought love ends up negotiating peace treaties inside his own living room. And the man who dreamed of shaping his destiny ends up reshaped by duties he never fully agreed to. That is not freedom. That is domestication disguised as devotion. 3. Happy wife, happy life, psychological conditioning. Don't be fooled. The most dangerous manipulation doesn't happen in a courtroom, it happens in the mind. From the time you step into marriage, you're trained subtly, persistently, to place her happiness above your own. That is not partnership. That is programming. It tells you that sacrifice equals love, that service defines your worth. But what it really creates is a one-sided power dynamic where one person's emotions become law and the other's joy is conditional, dependent, expendable. Schopenhauer warned, "A man can only be himself so long as he is alone." Modern Stoic men must reflect on this truth. Old Stoic wisdom teaches that a man must guard his independence as fiercely as his honor. Without solitude, without space, without self-determination, a man loses the conditions that make him authentic. And the tragedy? It doesn't happen with a single blow. It happens slowly. It disguises itself as harmony, compromise, peace. One evening, you give up a night with your brothers just to avoid conflict. Another time, you nod along at her choice of restaurant, telling yourself it's easier that way. Soon, you let her decide the social plans, the family schedules, the very direction of your life. Each concession feels small in the moment. Each choice feels harmless. But stacked together, they form a cage. Your agency shrinks. Your sovereignty dissolves. You wake up one day and realize you are no longer steering your own ship. Don't allow your mind to be captured under the banner of keeping the peace. That is not peace, it is surrender. That is not harmony, it is self-erasure. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, reminded men, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The modern Stoic man must reclaim that strength. He must see compromise for what it often is: a slow erosion of his fire, his choices, his masculine edge. Don't confuse love with obedience. Don't confuse patience with silence. Don't confuse sacrifice with slavery. If your happiness only exists as a reaction to hers, then you have already lost yourself. And once you lose yourself, what do you really have left to give? Men today must live like the old Stoic philosophers taught, with clarity, with courage, with unshakable presence. You must guard your freedom the way a soldier guards his sword. You must be vigilant against small compromises that pile into chains. Ask yourself, are you living as a man with agency or as a shadow serving someone else's script? The hidden truth is this: marriage in its modern form can exploit the very virtues, loyalty, responsibility, sacrifice that once made men strong. Don't let that truth own you. Own it, learn from it, rise above it, reclaim your time, your choices, your independence. Be the man who leads his life, not the man who merely reacts to hers. That is stoicism in practice, that is sovereignty in action, and that is victory. 4. The behavioral pattern of women in marriage. Don't let the predictability of relationship rhythms catch you off guard. Be the man who sees the pattern and acts with clarity. During courtship, many women lean into maximum connection, playful energy, shared interests, fewer demands, warmth everywhere, and that feels amazing. That is the honeymoon incentive structure at work. Once commitment is secured, incentives shift. Affection can feel conditional. Shared interests narrow toward family priorities, requests rise, and the woman who once adapted to you now expects you to adapt to the shared life you built. You must understand this isn't villainy, it's incentives and instincts converging. Evolution, culture, and the daily pressures of home naturally push both partners, women included, towards stability, provisioning, and risk reduction. That is, the system does what systems do: protect the nest. The mistake men make is assuming the early dynamic will manage itself. It won't. Don't resent the shift. Read it, name it, and renegotiate it with strength and goodwill. Here are psychology tips that save years. Keep your identity as a non negotiable: purpose, friends, fitness, craft. Because when you drop those, you become easier to manage, but harder to desire. Be steady, not soft. Kindness without boundaries invites scope creep. You must treat intimacy as a living culture you both co create, not a vending machine that dispenses on perfect behavior. That is why smart love advice starts early. From day one, set the tone that affection, respect, and desire are mutual practices, not prizes. Praise what you want more of, but never bribe for connection. For practical psychology tips, frame requests around shared wins instead of compliance. Let's both protect Friday date night so we bring our best selves to the week and keep score fairly. Shared budgets, shared chores, shared rest. Don't seed the calendar. Guard rituals that make you magnetic. Men's nights, deep work blocks, training sessions. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Set the temperature of the relationship through your standards, not her moods. You must continue courting your wife like a lover, not managing her like a project. Plan small adventures, create novelty, lead with calm energy. Paradoxically, when you protect your edge, attraction often returns because you're leading yourself first. That is where dating tips meet married life. Flirt again, tease lightly, hold eye contact, speak less and mean more, and keep mystery by staying in motion toward worthy goals. Don't wage war against biology, align with it. If she's optimizing for security, demonstrate security without becoming domesticated. Competence, decisiveness, generosity with backbone. When demands rise, ask, what's the trade? Build agreements with timelines and measures so nobody drifts into quiet resentment. For men who want love advice that actually works, remember, admiration fuels attraction. People don't desire what they pity. Be admirable, fit, useful, emotionally composed, ethically anchored. You must communicate like a leader. State your needs plainly, invite hers, and negotiate until both feel seen. Intimacy grows where clarity and safety meet tension and play. That is the hidden truth. Relationships aren't static. They're negotiated cultures that drift toward convenience unless someone steers. Use dating tips even after the vows, micro touches when you pass, a private joke, a 5-minute focused check-in at night, and ensure sex stays a celebration, not a scoreboard. Talk openly about desire, frequency, and fantasies like adults, not prosecutors. Don't accept a slide into roommate mode. Design against it. Be responsible without becoming replaceable. Keep rare qualities, courage, composure under stress, discernment, so you remain the man she chose, not a diluted version. You must also audit your own contribution. Are you leading with initiative or waiting to be told? Are you solving problems upstream or firefighting downstream? That is the final frame. This isn't about blaming women. It's about understanding incentives and writing a better script. When you bring steady leadership, fair structure, and playful polarity, You transform the same evolutionary currents from traps into tailwinds. So adopt psychology tips that respect reality, lean on love advice that honors both of you, and keep practicing dating tips that preserve mystery. Be calm, be kind, be unshakably you, and watch the dynamic rise to meet the man you decide to be. 5. The conditional nature of love. Here lies a brutal truth most men would rather cover with flowers and fairy tales. A wife's love is conditional. It is not anchored to his soul, his spirit, or his intrinsic worth. It is chained to his usefulness. The moment his value slips, whether from financial collapse, declining health, or the slow poison of familiarity that kills desire, the temperature of her love begins to cool. This isn't cynicism. This is observation backed by hard reality. Love psychology shows us that desire and affection are rarely unconditional. They are tethered to benefit, security, and satisfaction. That is why statistics speak louder than wedding vows. Women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces, and they don't leave simply because of vague unhappiness. They leave when the calculation changes, when the marriage no longer aligns with their relationship goals, when the cost outweighs the benefit, and when the prospect of better terms elsewhere begins to gleam on the horizon. A man must face this with courage, not with denial. Don't lull yourself with the illusion that loyalty alone will shield you. Be honest. Ask yourself, how many married men do you know who still walk with fire in their eyes, with sovereignty in their step, with confidence that makes them attract women like they once did in their youth? Too few. Because marriage, as constructed today, doesn't merely test love, it monetizes it, bureaucratizes it, and when it fails, penalizes one side far more than the other. The family court system steps in not as a neutral arbiter, but as an extractor, ensuring that even when the marriage collapses, the man keeps paying. Alimony, child support, asset division, resources stripped from a man who now funds a household he no longer belongs to. Imagine a contract where even after termination, the losing party must keep paying for services no longer received. That is modern marriage. The metaphor is clear. Marriage is like a business partnership where one party can leave at will, take half the assets, and still demand monthly payments, while the other has no such exit strategy. Don't romanticize it. Be strategic. Understand the rules before you play the game. If you choose to marry, you must know the battlefield, not walk blindly into it with flowers in hand. This doesn't mean you must become bitter or loveless. Quite the opposite. It means you must become wiser, more grounded, and deeply aware of human nature. As Marcus Aurelius said, you must understand the nature of the game if you wish not to be played. So, what should a man do? First, recognize that conditional love is the reality, not the exception. Don't expect guarantees in a world driven by shifting incentives. Build yourself into a man of value who is not only desirable but also sovereign. Work on your health, your finances, and your charisma. Remember that to attract women is not just about charm, but about presence, strength, and the ability to walk away if the deal no longer serves you. Second, align your relationship goals with clarity. Don't get swept away by emotion alone. Demand alignment in values, loyalty, and long-term vision. Third, practice vigilance. Be the man who doesn't get blindsided because he refused to read the fine print. At the end of the day, marriage is not inherently evil, but it is a system with incentives stacked unevenly. Don't hate the system, master it. Don't fear love, understand it. Don't walk in blind, walk in with eyes wide open. That is the hidden truth most men never hear until it's too late. And that is why you must never forget. Love may be conditional, but your sovereignty must never be. If you found this truth eye-opening, make sure to like this video, share it with a friend who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more psychology tips and hidden truths about relationships. To lock this lesson into your mind, drop a comment below with the affirmation, I choose truth over conditional love. 6. The psychological toll. The psychological toll of marriage is not just about money, it runs deeper, cutting into a man's very identity and sense of worth, reshaping his inner world until he barely recognizes himself. Over time, he learns that his thoughts, feelings, and desires are secondary to maintaining peace at home. His role becomes reactive, not proactive. He exists to fix, to soothe, to absorb. Psychologists call this learned helplessness, a condition where repeated exposure to conflict and stress convinces a man that resistance is useless. And so he surrenders not because he lacks needs, but because experience has taught him that speaking up only invites more conflict. Slowly, he develops what could be called a form of domestic Stockholm syndrome. He starts defending the very system that exploits him, aligning with goals that are not his own, and telling himself lies like sacrifice equals love, or real men always put their family first, no matter the cost. Don't be fooled. That is not partnership, it is servitude. Marcus Aurelius, the old Stoic emperor, warned, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." Yet society pushes the opposite. The media glorifies the man who burns himself out for everyone else. Religion sanctifies blind sacrifice, praising men who erase themselves. Even other men reinforce the lie, clapping for their own chains, unwilling to admit their defeat. And this is where you must wake up. You must look at modern life through the lens of a modern Stoic, not the broken lens society hands you. Ask yourself, are you living as a free man or as a well-trained servant? Seneca, one of the old Stoics, declared, "No man is free who is a slave to his body." I will add, no man is free who is a slave to an institution that tells him his value is in silence and self-erasure. Don't mistake exploitation for love. Don't call obedience commitment. Don't label your slow decay as duty. Be alert. Be conscious. That is how a modern Stoic lives, in awareness, in strength, in sovereignty. The lesson of Stoicism is not passive endurance, but active mastery. The ability to control what is within you and refuse to bow to what is unjust. You must take back your agency, your fire, your ambitions. Yes, sacrifice is noble when chosen freely, but when demanded and exploited, it is poison. Stop letting guilt and fear chain you. Start living as a man who knows his worth. Society may cheer when you sacrifice yourself, but only you will pay the price in silence, resentment, and regret. Instead, let's redefine what it means to be a husband, a father, a man, not as a beast of burden, but as a leader, a protector, a soul with purpose. The world respects power, not submission. The old Stoic wisdom and the modern Stoic mindset agree. You cannot serve others fully if you have destroyed yourself in the process. Take this seriously. Take it personally. Don't accept the myth that marriage as it stands is your destiny. You must rise above it, reclaim your freedom, and master your life. 7. The true nature of marriage. Marriage, when stripped of its romantic illusions, reveals itself not as a sanctuary of unconditional love, but as a system of leverage where power flows to the one with more options. And this truth, though uncomfortable, is vital for men to grasp. A man who believes he can secure loyalty through endless sacrifice has already lost the game because he confuses duty with devotion and service with security. Failing to see that in its modern form, marriage is not the eternal union of souls, but a binding contract that holds regardless of fading passion, shifting emotions, or evolving needs. That is why great thinkers like Schopenhauer warned us that happiness is never a positive gain, but the absence of suffering. Meaning, real contentment comes not from another person filling your void, but from mastering yourself and needing no one to complete you. A lesson every man must take seriously if he wants to maintain freedom. Don't be deceived by the promise that marriage will automatically grant you fulfillment. Because when you outsource your happiness to partnership and shared goals, you put your sovereignty on the auction block and hand over the leash willingly. Be wise and recognize that marriage today often functions less as a partnership and more as a social machine designed to strip away independence, pushing men to trade their fire and identity for a role of compliant provider. That is why psychology tips, love advice, and dating tips become crucial weapons for the modern man. They show you how to see through illusions, how to attract women without surrendering control, and how to engage in relationships without losing your own center. You must remember that women respect men who choose from abundance, not desperation, because the one with options sets the rules, and the one who clings begs for scraps. Don't let the fear of being alone push you into believing marriage is your only path to meaning. Be the man who views it as an optional arrangement, never a guarantee of salvation. When you operate from this mindset, You reclaim power because you see marriage not as destiny, but as choice, not as cage, but as contract, not as your source of joy, but as one possible chapter in a story you control. That is why the strongest men never chase validation through vows, but cultivate strength, discipline, and self reliance first. They know that if marriage aligns with their vision, it can be embraced. But if it doesn't, they walk away without fear. Don't ask for a lighter load, ask for broader shoulders, Jan, said Roosevelt. And this applies perfectly here. Don't ask marriage to save you. Ask yourself to be strong enough to never need saving. Be the man who understands that love advice is not about blind devotion, but about strategic wisdom. That psychology tips are not about compliance, but about clarity. And that dating tips are not about manipulation, but about self mastery. You must master yourself before you can master any relationship. Because the man who depends on marriage for happiness has already surrendered his freedom. But the man who carries happiness within can enter or exit any union and remain sovereign. And that, my brothers, is the hidden truth you cannot afford to ignore. 8. The man's strategic response. Most men fail not because they are weak, but because they try to fight a battle that was lost before it even began. They think they can negotiate with nature itself. They tell themselves, if I just communicate better, if I earn more money, if I hit the gym and become more attractive, things will shift in my favor. But that's like trying to bargain with gravity. Gravity doesn't care, and neither does evolutionary programming. Love psychology teaches us that women aren't consciously plotting every move any more than men consciously choose to be drawn to youth and fertility. It happens beneath awareness, a current stronger than reason. Don't fool yourself into believing you can charm or buy your way out of that truth. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever tried to fix a broken dynamic by giving more, only to find yourself valued less? That is the paradox. The harder you try, the easier it becomes for her to see you not as a man with dreams, goals, and individuality, but as a role, a provider, protector, emotional sponge, problem solver. When that happens, you stop being her partner and start being her employee. The moment you become indispensable to her lifestyle, you become dispensable as a person. That is the hidden trap, the one few men dare to say out loud. From the outside, it still looks like marriage. But on the inside, it becomes something else entirely, a form of quiet servitude dressed up as love, with occasional sexual privileges thrown in like workplace bonuses. Efficient? Yes. Equal partnership? Number. You must see it clearly. This is not about romance, it's about roles. And roles, when locked in without balance, crush the soul. That's why so many married men fade into shadows of their former selves. Studies even show that married men often die younger, suffer higher rates of depression, and lose touch with the spark that once made them alive. They aren't beaten down by life's natural hardships. They're suffocating under chronic psychological exploitation that's been repackaged as responsibility. Don't let yourself be consumed by a system that pretends to be mutual while slowly draining your spirit. Be alert. Be intentional. Ask yourself, are you building relationship goals that honor both your needs and hers? Or are you quietly slipping into servitude while telling yourself you're doing the right thing? Remember, the successful men, the ones who really understand this truth, never brag about it. They simply step outside the rigged game. They refuse to play by rules that ensure their loss. That is wisdom. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So here's the psychology tip you must carry. Don't compete where the game is fixed. Don't try to buy love with money, favors, or endless sacrifice. Instead, anchor yourself in your own value. Build relationship goals that align with your soul and focus on becoming the man who can attract women not because he bends, but because he stands. That is the man who wins respect, who lives free, and who never wakes up one day wondering where his life went. 9. The path to psychological sovereignty. The path to psychological sovereignty is not about chasing validation or living in constant fear of rejection. It is about mastering yourself, and that requires ruthless inner work. Don't cling to the part of you that begs for approval, especially from women, because that hunger enslaves you. As Marcus Aurelius, the old Stoic, once said, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You must build a life so complete, so compelling, so anchored in mission that no relationship drama can shake you. Don't be the man who begs or pleads for love. Be the man who stands so firmly in his independence that solitude itself becomes his fortress. That is psychological sovereignty. And paradoxically, this very independence is what draws others in. Because the law of scarcity never changes, what is rare commands attention, what is abundant is ignored. When you are constantly available, endlessly agreeable, and desperate to please, you broadcast weakness. Women's evolutionary psychology, whether they admit it or not, interprets that neediness as inferiority. They may praise niceness in words, but desire doesn't ignite in response to weakness. It shuts down. Contrast that with the man who enforces his standards, guards his time, and stays true to his mission, even when it creates friction. He becomes magnetic. He flips the script. Instead of chasing, he is chased. Instead of proving himself, he demands others prove themselves worthy of him. That role reversal is addictive, and it aligns with primal courtship patterns written deep in human biology. The modern Stoic understands this truth just as the old Stoic did. Real power is never in begging, it is in mastery of the self. Don't give away your time cheaply. Don't surrender your mission for temporary comfort. Don't let your worth be measured by someone else's approval. You must live with the clarity that your life is your empire, and you are its ruler. Man conquers the world by conquering himself, wrote Zeno, founder of Stoicism. And that wisdom remains as sharp in modern life as it was in ancient times. Today, when distractions scream for your attention, when social media rewards fake validation, when relationships are shaped by instant gratification, your strength must come from stillness, discipline, and purpose. Be that man who commands respect through his actions, not his words. Be the one who attracts women, not by pleading, but by embodying independence. Be the one who sees love as a blessing, not a crutch. This is how you rise above exploitation. This is how you claim freedom. This is how you master life. So I ask you, are you willing to kill the weak part of you that clings to approval and embrace the stoicism that makes men truly powerful? The choice is yours, but the victory will belong only to those who dare. 10. The ultimate truth and final choice. Schopenhauer's ultimate truth was not simply about women, nor was it just about marriage. It was about transcending the invisible programming that drives most men's lives. Once you see the code, you can finally decide whether to be ruled by it or to master it. That is the essence of the red pill, not bitterness, not cynicism, but a ruthless commitment to truth. Don't let illusions guide your life. Don't let desperation masquerade as devotion. Be awake. Be conscious. Be sovereign. The strong man learns to stand alone so that when he chooses connection, it is by will, not by need. He learns to attract women not through games or empty gestures, but through the power of his independence. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, he who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. The man who has conquered his inner world becomes unshakable in the outer world. He loves without clinging, gives without losing himself, engages without surrendering his identity. That is power. That is love psychology at its highest form. And here is the paradox. The less he needs relationships, the stronger his relationships become. Why? Because real love is not born from weakness, but from strength. It is not built on dependency, but on sovereignty. Two complete individuals can form a union that enhances both lives without diminishing either. Such relationships become true relationship goals, not the hollow imitations you see plastered on social media, but the kind forged by character, discipline, and freedom. Don't confuse possession with partnership. Don't confuse validation with love. Be the man who chooses, not the man who begs. Most men never arrive here. Why? Because inner work is hard. Facing your demons, breaking free of childhood programming, rejecting the comforting lies of society, all of that takes courage. But the man who does this work becomes rare, valuable, magnetic. He doesn't chase. He attracts women naturally. He doesn't cling. He offers. He doesn't collapse under pressure. He grows stronger. He remains free, whether he marries or not. He can walk toward love when it serves him and walk away when it doesn't without losing himself. That is sovereignty. That is power. And as Nietzsche reminded us, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. The choice, then, is brutally simple. Continue down the path of psychological slavery disguised as love, or rise into sovereignty and create a life where authentic love is possible. One road leads to quiet misery, subtle resentment, and a life spent serving expectations. The other road leads to freedom, strength, and rare, powerful connection. The difference between the two is not luck. It is not fate. It is not chance. It is consciousness and courage. Don't forget this truth. Don't excuse weakness. Be awake. Be decisive. Be free. Because in the end, your future self will look back at the man you are today and either thank you for your courage or curse you for your cowardice. Choose wisely. Your freedom, your strength, and your love depend on it. Brothers, at the end of the day, the choice really is in your hands. And that's both a responsibility and a gift. Don't be the man who gives away his freedom, his mind, and his soul just to chase after conditional love that disappears when your usefulness runs out. Be the man who stands tall, who chooses awareness, and who has the courage to protect his psychological sovereignty. My sincere advice to you is this: take the harder road, because that road, the road of self mastery and truth, will always lead you to freedom and authentic connection. Real love isn't about filling your emptiness, it's about two complete people coming together. Remember, your future self will either thank you or curse you for the decisions you make today. So choose wisely, live boldly, and never forget you owe it to yourself to become the man you were meant to be. Thanks for being here with me today, my friend. Stay strong, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one. And if this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with another man who needs to hear this truth. Your support keeps this message alive and helps more men wake up to their own power.